The creaky steps beneath me groaned like ancient sentinels as I huddled, unseen, at the top. Below, voices swirled in the kitchen, a messy knot of accusations and anxieties. Mom's pleas, laced with a tremor like autumn leaves caught in a breeze, were met with Frank's gruff retorts. He'd barged into our lives like a discount superhero, all bluster and no cape, leaving a trail of chaos in his wake. "She's my daughter, Frank," Mom ventured, her voice barely a whisper, tiptoeing around his emotional landmines. "Look," he countered, his tone laced with annoyance. "I didn't sign up for this mess. This place is a wreck, your cooking's questionable, and now a kid. I got my own family coming, Sheila. This ain't part of the plan." "Say it, Frank," Mom challenged, her voice hardening with defiance. "Don't sugarcoat it." He scoffed. "This leech, hanging around like a bad smell. What is she, huh? Just another mouth to feed, someone I don't even know. She's gotta go." Mom's exhale was a heavy sigh, thick with regret that hung in the air like storm clouds. But where? My heart pounded like a trapped bird. Frank, with his fists the size of boulders, wouldn't understand the sting of his words. "Her Aunt Linda," he suggested, referring to the deadbeat relative I barely remembered. "Family, right? Let her deal with the kid." A dial tone sliced through the tension. Frank's voice, gruff and impatient, filled the air as he spoke into the phone. "Linda, Frank here. Doing you a solid. Nah, not health-wise. It's the kid, Shayla's daughter." I squeezed my eyes shut, wishing the threadbare carpet beneath me could swallow me whole. "Yeah, Pully," Frank barked, his words cold and dismissive. "Listen, here's the deal. She's coming to live with you." A beat of silence, then a hesitant reply. "What?" "Nah, don't worry about." But the words were lost on me. My world had tilted, sending me hurtling towards an uncertain future with Aunt Linda, a stranger with a name that echoed like a distant knell. She'd practically blend into the wallpaper anyway, right? Wouldn't even know the ghost child existed. Mom shuffled around downstairs, probably wringing her hands like a dishcloth gone rogue. Her voice, thick with guilt and desperation, crackled through the thin floorboards. "Linda, it's Shayla. Listen, we're in a bind. Can't handle another one with the baby coming." Aunt Linda's voice sliced through the air, sharp and cold as a winter wind. "Fine, I'll take her. But this ain't no charity service, Sheila. You better keep those checks coming, understand?" I winced even from my perch at the top of the stairs. Mom flinching was practically a given. "Done deal," she sighed, the finality heavy in the air. It wasn't the clothes crammed in my duffel bag that truly mattered then, but those checks Aunt Linda craved like a dragon hoarded gold. Footsteps hammered up the stairs, each thud echoing the impending doom in my chest. I scrambled into my room, heart pounding like a drum solo gone haywire, drowning out the murmurs of the approaching goodbye. Mom's tentative knock, soft as a butterfly's wing, sent shivers down my spine. "Honey," she began, pushing the door open, her face etched with an apology even before the words tumbled out. "You're going to stay with Aunt Linda for a while." I stood there, the duffel bag clutched like a lifeline in a sinking ship, the only familiar thing left in this upside-down world. One last glance at my room, a silent goodbye to the memories etched in its walls, and then I stepped out into the dim hallway, Mom's shadow trailing behind me like a reminder of what I was leaving behind. Easier not to look back, not to see the hurt in her eyes. Stepping out onto the porch, I faced Aunt Linda, her gaze as cold and assessing as a January wind. "So you're finally here, Pully," she finally spoke, her voice devoid of warmth. "Hi, Aunt Linda," I managed, forcing my voice steady. "Don't just stand there, haul your things in. But remember, this ain't no hotel. My roof, my rules." With that, she turned on her heel and disappeared into the house, the warmth of a meat locker clinging to her like a second skin. I followed, the air thick with unspoken tension. Rule number 1, shoes off at the door, and don't you dare track in any dirt. This ain't no pigsty, she snapped, gesturing towards the entrance. I nodded mutely, kicking off my sneakers and leaving them by the door. Rule number 2. Lights out at 9, school nights or not. Aunt Linda's pronouncements were like a hailstorm of rules, each one colder and sharper than the last. No late-night shenanigans, get it? She barked, ticking off a list on imaginary fingers. Understood, I mumbled, my voice barely audible. Rule 3. Zip it. No backtalk, just do as you're told pronto. Her house was a shrine to order, everything frozen in place under plastic sheets. The living room looked like a museum display, furniture untouched, probably never sat on. She caught my eye, her voice snapping like a whip. Those are for show, not sitting. Mess them up and you'll be singing soprano for a week. I swallowed hard, nodding again, trying to absorb the avalanche of regulations. Life with Aunt Linda was like walking a tightrope over a pit of hungry alligators. I tiptoed through my days, invisible as a shadow, hoping to avoid her laser-sharp tongue. Then, one day, disaster struck. A rogue splash of milk dared to stain the pristine countertop. I scrambled to clean it up, but Aunt Linda materialized like a vengeful ghost, her voice booming like a thunderstorm. What's this? A miniature flood. Worsting food and making a mess. Before I could explain, she cut me off, her words like icy daggers. Think a sorry and a rag fix everything. You think I'm your personal maid, cleaning up after your clumsiness. Panic choked my throat. I stammered, but she waved me off like a pesky fly. Your mom dumps you here like I'm some charity case, she grumbled. Even she didn't want you, so why should I? Her words hit me like a physical blow, the air thick with unspoken pain. I stood there, jaw clenched, swallowing my tears. Arguing was futile, I knew. Aunt Linda's rules were ironclad, unyielding to anyone. Sorry, won't happen again. I choked out, my voice barely a whisper. See that it doesn't, she warned, her eyes glinting with icy menace. One more slip-up and things get messy. Understand? I nodded, my voice a mere squeak. Dinner was a silent affair, Aunt Linda preferring the company of her own chewing to any conversation. I ate meticulously, every bite a reminder of my isolation. Days blurred into weeks, then months, each one as monotonous as the last. One afternoon, I found myself curled up on the faded carpet of my room, the wallpaper peeling like tears on the wall. Unlike my cozy haven back at Mom's, this room was just another box in the sterile house. With Aunt Linda gone grocery shopping, I took a deep breath and grabbed the cordless phone. My heart pounded a frantic rhythm against my ribs as I dialed Mom's number, a sequence etched in my memory from countless takeout orders and spider emergencies. The phone rang, each ring echoing my growing anxiety. Finally, her voice hesitant at first. Yeah, Mom, it's me, Pully. I blurted out before my courage could evaporate. A pause, then a sigh, heavy and cold. What do you want? I wanted to pour out my heart, tell her about the loneliness, the rules, the sting of rejection. But the words wouldn't come. I miss you, I stammered, my voice cracking. Don't. Her voice was a wall of ice. Don't ever call here again. The click of the phone was deafening, the finality of her words a lead weight in my stomach. It wasn't just the rejection that hurt, it was the crushing sense of being utterly alone. Hope that was important. Aunt Linda's voice, chilling gust of winter air, sent shivers down my spine. I turned startled, the phone slipping from my grasp, its clatter echoing in the silence. I just wanted to talk, I mumbled, my voice cracking like a chipped teacup. Aunt Linda snatched the phone away, her eyes narrowing into icy slits. Think these calls grow on trees, she snapped. I'm sorry, I'll pay for it, I stammered, though the idea of having any money was laughable. She scoffed. Pay for it with what? You've been a pain in the neck, that's for sure, and I'm done with both of you. Before I could plead, she was barking into the phone again, arranging a one-way trip to another relative. I barely registered the bus ticket and hastily repacked duffel bag shoved into my arms before I was dumped at the bus stop, her good riddance echoing in my ears like a cruel farewell. The bus rumbled away, the town shrinking into a watercolor painting in the rearview mirror. Mom's voice, cold and unfamiliar, played on repeat in my head. I pressed my forehead against the cool window, the engine's hum a counterpoint to the storm raging inside me. Grandma's town, a couple of hours away, was smaller and slower paced. Her house, older but twice as cozy as Aunt Linda's museum, welcomed me with open arms. She stood on the porch, her brow furrowed with concern. "Everything all right, Polly?" she asked as my tired feet climbed the steps. I shook my head, the words tumbling out in a rush. "Aunt Linda sent me away, and Mom doesn't want to talk to me anymore." Grandma sighed, her hug a warm embrace that chased away the chill. "Families can be tricky things," she murmured. "Come inside, honey. Tea will fix anything." As I sank into the kitchen chair, enveloped by the comforting scent of cinnamon and apples, the warmth falling my frozen fingers, a hard truth settled in. Sometimes the perfect family picture in your head doesn't match reality. And maybe, just maybe, it was time to figure out how to deal with that. The day I settled into Grandma's house, I knew I was entering a different world. Unlike Aunt Linda's sterile walls, these were adorned with vibrant landscapes and blooming flowers. Grandma, the heart of the house, hummed a quirky tune as she bustled around the kitchen. "Need a hand, Bran?" I asked, dragging my duffel bag inside. She didn't even miss a beat in her humming. "Nah, sweetheart, just grab a seat at the table. Grub's almost ready." Her voice, roughened by years of yelling over farm machinery, held a warmth that Aunt Linda's ever could. The loudest noise here was the creak of the porch swing and the clatter of her well-worn pots. Weeks turned into months, and I fell into the rhythm of her life. Wake up before the sun, help with breakfast, school, chores, dinner, homework, and bed. Simple, steady, no frills, no drama. One crisp autumn afternoon, I found myself on the porch swing, watching the sunset paint the sky in fiery hues. "Got something to tell you," Grandma said, plopping down beside me. I gripped the chains, bracing myself for her trademark bluntness. "You're not just staying here temporarily, you understand. This is your home now." Papers fluttered in her hand, legal jargon dancing before my eyes. Custody, guardianship, words that felt more like burdens than blessings. "Why, Gran?" I questioned, feeling like a problem child rather than a cherished one. Her smile held a wisdom etched by time. "Blood matters, kiddo. But more than that, you've got fire in your soul. Remember, tenderness beneath the strength." She tapped her chest. "That's where your fiercest battles will be fought." We sat in comfortable silence, the swing creaking a gentle harmony with the darkening sky. Her words wrapped around me like the quilts on my bed, offering a warmth I hadn't known I craved. "Thanks, Gran." I finally choked out, the words feeling inadequate. "Save the gratitude," she chuckled, a playful glint in her eyes. "Tomorrow there'll be extra weeds to conquer, don't you forget." Now, perched on the swing a few days past my 16th birthday, I saw Grandma's house for what it truly was, not just a refuge, but a launching pad. With her unwavering support, I was ready to sprint out into the world. The first rays of dawn hadn't even painted the sky when Grandma's voice jolted me awake. "Rise and shine, Doc," she chimed, a daily ritual since I started med school. Groaning, I fumbled for my alarm clock. "It's still dark out, Gran." "The world doesn't wait for light," she boomed. "Cows don't milk themselves, and patients don't cure themselves." Though lacking actual cows, her point was clear. Days at the hospital became a kaleidoscope of sterile white walls and rhythmic beeps. By the time I returned, the golden hues of dusk painted the house, beckoning me with a warm glow. "How was it?" Grandma asked, stirring something delectable in a pan. "Good," I said, a genuine smile spreading across my face. "Really good." I scrubbed my hands, stealing glances at her nimble movements. Dr. Kling even let me lead a minor procedure, Her eyebrows shot up in surprise, a ladle dripping sauce mid-air. "Did you now? And how did that feel?" "Terrifying," I admitted, a nervous laugh escaping my lips. "But I did it, and everything went smoothly." "That's because you're made of tough stuff," she declared, setting a plate brimming with food on the table. "Earned your stripes today, wouldn't you say?" "Feels like it," I grinned, digging into the meal with newfound appreciation. As the last rays of sunlight faded, we settled on the porch, me with a textbook, her with her rhythmic knitting needles. The silence was punctuated only by crickets and the occasional rustle of pages. Thinking about Ted, her voice broke the tranquility. Ted, the first boy I brought home, felt like a distant memory in my whirlwind life. "Not much time for that," I replied, barely looking up. "Relationships seem like a luxury I can't afford right now." "You make time for what's important," she countered, her voice firm but gentle. "Life isn't all about work and study." I sighed, the weight of her words settling in. "Maybe after residency, Gran." She nodded, understanding in her eyes. "Just remember, sweetheart, life is short." Her words weren't new, but they held a deeper meaning now. "Remember, sweetheart," she'd say, "you're more than just a good doctor. You've got a heart meant to share." It was her gentle way of grounding me, reminding me there was a world beyond medicine, one I'd eventually step into. We fell silent, the night weaving a hush around us as I contemplated a future both thrilling and daunting. As the clock ticked toward a new day, one thing was certain: I face it head-on, just like Grandma taught me. But life rarely gives fair warning. When Grandma missed breakfast for the third day in a row, alarm bells started ringing. "It's nothing," she'd brush away my concern, but her pale face and frail voice told a different story. When the news hit, blunt and heavy like the EKG I wished belonged to someone else, the world tilted on its axis. "Cancer," the doctor announced, confirming my worst fears. The battle was fierce, Grandma's determination unwavering, but even the strongest warriors eventually yield. One quiet morning, her fight ended with a soft sigh, like slipping into a warm bath. The house felt hollowed out, its heart gone. I went through the funeral motions, accepting condolences, hearing whispers of "she loved you like her own." They didn't understand. She wasn't just mine. She was my everything. Everyone left eventually, and I stood alone by the too shiny casket. Whispering to Grandma, like we used to when it was just us against the world, I vowed, "I'll make you proud, I swear." The sterile smell of disinfectant filled my nostrils the next morning as I entered the hospital. My hands were steady, my mind focused. This was where I belonged. Grandma was gone, but her spirit lived on in my every stitch, a testament to her legacy of love. A love that transcended final breaths and quiet goodbyes. A love that fueled me when life knocked me down. A love that whispered, "Rise, face the day, you're never truly alone." Then, on a lazy Sunday, Mom reappeared, dramatics trailing behind her like a bad perfume. The doorbell's shrill ring shattered my peace, pulling me away from medical journals and coffee. They stood there, a picture-perfect family portrait warped by greed. Mom's piercing gaze met mine, and before I could even blink, she was launching into her demand. "It's only fair," she declared, her hands fluttering like a caged bird. "Half is ours by right." Stepdad loomed in the doorway, arms crossed, a predatory glint in his eyes. Sarah, silent observer, scrolled through her phone, oblivious to the storm brewing. A laugh escaped me, surprising even myself. "Fair for what? You kicked me out when I was 11, remember?" Mom's eyes narrowed. "We gave you a roof, fed you, clothed you," she argued, her voice laced with entitlement. "Rations and hand-me-downs, more like," I countered, mirroring Stepdad's stance. "I wouldn't be intimidated." "But Grandma," she spat the name, "she left you everything, and we need it desperately." Stepdad leaned closer, his voice menacing. "Just give us what's ours, and we can all go our separate ways." They didn't come knocking, they barged. Mom, stepdad, and Sarah in tow, occupying Grandma's house like squatters with bad taste. Family, my mom chirped, an unconvincing facade plastered on her face. Stepdad loomed behind her, silent but menacing. Their audacity fueled my anger. "This isn't a hotel," I stated, voice firm despite the tremor in my stomach. Mom's smile faltered. Stepdad scoffed. "We're not leaving." His smugness made my blood boil. "Legally, this house is mine." I reminded them, the keys heavy in my pocket. "One day to pack your bags, then I call the cops." They scoffed again, but the amusement flickered in their eyes. Still, they stayed put, sprawled on the furniture like they owned the place. The next morning, the police siren sliced through the silence. I watched through the window, heart pounding a war drum against my ribs. The officers were firm, their voices leaving no room for argument. The laughter evaporated from Mom's face, replaced by a desperate plea. But the law held no sway for family ties, only legal ownership. As their car dwindled into the distance, a sigh escaped my lips, the weight of their presence lifting like a storm cloud. The house was quiet, not empty, but filled with a newfound peace. Grandma's voice echoed not in the walls, but in my heart, her words a salve on old wounds. I walked through the familiar rooms, each step reclaiming a piece of myself. The kitchen where flour-dusted laughter filled the air, the living room where tears mingled with ice cream, and her bedroom where whispered prayers painted hope on a bleak canvas. The scent of coffee replaced the lingering musk of their intrusion, grounding me in the present. Raising my cup to the morning sun, I smiled, justice served, both sweet and bitter on my tongue. I hope you guys enjoy our video. To watch more interesting stories, hit that subscribe button. Thank you.